Hey everyone, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are and when you are seeing this live or in the future. Sorry for the technical mix-up and a few minutes of us being late, just getting through some, Zoom fun there. I'm your host, Nisarg Desai. I'm the head of the Boston chapter at Products That Count, and I'm also the director of product management at a security company called Huntress Labs. I am super excited to talk about this topic today, which is actually pretty close to my heart, about breaking into product management, but rising up the career ladder as a PM, about tackling obstacles along the way. It's close to my heart because I've faced these challenges before, have had to go through this path, this journey, along with many others. But it's the most common question that folks have asked me is, hey, I'm an engineer. How do I break into product? How do I rise up the ranks to go from an ICPM to a PM manager? And what are different skills that are required for me in order to succeed in different industries at different levels, but always on this engineer to PM leader track? I am super excited to talk to our guest today, someone who I've known for a long time. Our guest today is Alex Guernon. She's a senior director of product management at Raptive. I will let her go through her intro in just a second. But Alex and I went to grad school together, gosh, I think 9 years ago. And I was just talking to her the other day, and we've spent collectively several hundred hours in grad school together, trying to learn some of the skills and learnings that we'll talk about today, and then putting these into practice across your career journey. Um, Alex has been through several different PM roles. She'll talk about those. Um, and without further ado, let me turn it over to Alex to give her an intro for herself. And I have a few questions for Alex to start off with after that. And once we're done with that, we will get through to the main part of the presentation. Um, just a quick reminder, housekeeping for everyone who is on here. If you're live, thank you for joining us live. Please send your questions at any time during this presentation. You can type it into the chat window. We will see them. We will collect them. I like to keep this super interactive, so we'll try and answer these live if possible, and we'll pause at the right moment to be able to answer these. But please send them in, and we'll get to these as many as possible. We'll have the actual content, and then at the end, if we have more time, we'll pause for even more questions. So with that, let me turn this over to Alex. Alex, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nisarg. It's amazing to be here. Thank you for having me. So I'll do a brief intro and then later we'll dive into a lot of the nitty-gritty. But as this webinar suggests, my background is in mechanical engineering. And so I started my career working in defense. And then in 2013, decided I wanted to advance my career by going back to grad school. And so that's where I met Nisarg at our Master's in Engineering Management program at Tufts. It's Tufts Gordon Institute, so sometimes you'll hear us refer to it as TGI. And it was there that I learned a lot about these kind of business-oriented topics that I hadn't been exposed to previously, but business strategy, technology strategy, innovation, road mapping, marketing, finance, and decided I really loved those topics. And so it kind of made me think, well, maybe there is a role outside of engineering that I may want to pursue. So ultimately ended up breaking into product, starting off as a PM, moving up to SPM, and then to product leader. So today I work at Raptive, which is an ad management company. And so we manage ads for content creators. So an example is if you search on Google for best pumpkin pie recipe, you're going to see lots of results. And I checked today, and the top 3 results that you'll find are all Raptive creators. And so all of us are familiar with that experience. So you click on a recipe, you go to the site, you see the ads, the videos, you can kind of read about some background about like how the creator came up with their recipe, and then you can jump to the recipe to actually work on it, to create it. And so my product role at that company is managing a number of work streams related to kind of that creator experience. So they have to apply to work with Raptive. So we own the application for sites that are accepted, the onboarding flow, and then once ads are installed on the site, the portal where creators can log in and get access to a lot of reporting, self-service features, tools, and things like that. So that's one area. SEO is one of the tools also within the dashboard that is under my umbrella. And then the other area is internal automations. So thinking about ways where we can identify manual processes throughout the company and work to automate those so that we can, scale and grow without having to hire more people, but also allow employees to work on, more meaningful, less tedious tasks.
That is awesome, Alex. I mean, that's amazing to hear. Just looking and hearing what you said. I work in product management. I work in tech, and my work could not be more different than what you just explained. I work in cybersecurity, and I'm building a cybersecurity platform, and also work in a PM leadership role. But my day to day is so different, and it's funny that we both went to TGI. We both had at the same time had learnings, and we are now applying them. Maybe same ones, maybe different ones in different ways. And I think the amazing stuff that we can do in product and how we can apply and solve these problems with those shared learnings is great. So my first question for you, before we get into the main content, is what's one like shared learning you think we took away from TGI that you still remember to this day and have applied it in your PM journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that something that came up a lot in our program was this concept of, the skills that got you to where you are today are not the same skills that you'll need to get to where you want to be tomorrow. And especially kind of putting together, these slides and thinking back on my career, it couldn't be more apparent that that was definitely the case for me. But what also is great too is like you're able to build on those skills and continue to leverage them even as you grow within your career journey. But that's kind of a standout one for me.
That's awesome. Yes, I do remember that. I remember our professors drilling that into us and kind of helping us learn and telling us, to learn something new, you have to unlearn something. And the faster you can unlearn something is faster you can learn something else, something new. So that's a cool one. Um, so this topic today, this session today is for both budding PMs who want to grow their careers, for PMs who want to transition into product. So it's for a wide range of audiences. But before we get into your journey, a very simple kind of question I have is, who should become a PM? Who is this role and this session for?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it's interesting too, like being in this area for like around 7 years now, you meet a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds. And so so many people are able to be successful in this role coming from, different backgrounds, which is great. But I think some of the important things that you probably need to like to do to want to pursue a role like this is solve problems, identify problems, build solutions, work cross-functionally, and influence without authority. That's a big one, I think, for the PM role where, you're responsible for a lot, but you're not directly managing, anyone really when you're an individual contributor, but how can you work together to, get a feature or product out the door that's really going to make an impact for the business. And then I guess another piece too is kind of the desire to work both tactically and strategically, because I think both of those are key pieces in order to be successful as a PM.
That is great advice. Yes, I definitely agree with and espouse both of those. I love that. Um, and I think that that whole key on problem solving is important. Right? You can be on any background, you can be from any line of work or line of education, and still, if you have that innate skill for solving problems, you can, make it as a PM. That's awesome. I am curious to learn more about, how do you get into mechanical engineering for the first place, and what a journey was about that. Happy for you to share that now, or happy for you to share that through your presentation. But please take it away and help walk us through it.
Great. Yes, I will. I'll jump into that within the presentation. So let me just share my screen and we can jump in. All right. Can you see the screen?
I can see it. Perfect.
Great. All right. Well, yes, as an overview, I will be talking about, my journey from mechanical engineer and various companies and roles within product and moving into leadership positions and a lot of lessons along the way. So I couldn't do a product presentation and not include a roadmap. So here we have my pre-product career roadmap to showcase kind of how I started. And so to answer your question, Sarg, why did I choose mechanical engineering? I kind of fell into it. I liked math and science in high school, and my uncle was an engineer, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'm gonna try this out. But why I stuck with it was because I really enjoyed the problem solving aspect of building things to solve problems. And so after I graduated, I worked in defense for a number of years, went back to school, as I mentioned, the Master's in Engineering Management program. And as I mentioned earlier, too, like getting, having this exposure to business-oriented topics really kind of shifted my mindset. Going into that program, I was like, oh, I'm going to advance my career. I'm going to become an engineering manager. But I started to think about potential opportunities to pivot during that program. And when I started looking for roles outside of engineering, I kind of also stumbled upon like the product management role. And what I thought was really interesting about that was that I was like, okay, I can leverage my technical background and I can leverage my new business education and I can continue to build things and solve problems and make business impact. So I was like, this is what I want to do. But you can also imagine I had spent, a good portion of my, career so far, doing mechanical engineering work. So that was my mechanical engineering era. And then after graduation, I entered I want to get out of here. And that prompted my search and into product management. And it took me 2 years within that search to land my first PM role. So I'll tell a little bit more about that. So one thing that I really felt was important was not having been an actual product manager before, was trying to build relevant skills and experience, leveraging, the grad school coursework and project, as well as other skills that I had kind of built along the way to try to convey to recruiters and interviewers, like I have, the ability and the skills to succeed in this role. But, it was still tough because a lot of the feedback that I was getting over the course of these 2 years, applying to a lot of different types of, PM roles was, we're going to move forward with, a candidate who's done this before with direct PM experience, which was so frustrating because it's like, how can you get the experience if no one will hire you? But the other thing I did was really focus on networking. And I tried to talk to anyone and everyone who would speak to me about, can you review my resume? Like, how did you break into product? Like, would you have any, recommendations or advice? And I also went to a lot of networking events. I am an introvert, so this was not my most fun experience going to these events, like not knowing anyone. But how I kind of navigated that was I went into those events with mini goals. I was like, I'm going to talk to X number of people and then, give myself permission to kind of leave once I hit that goal if I don't want to stay anymore. And I tried to be strategic about that too, because a lot of times you'll go to these events and you'll see a list of, recruiters who are going to be there, and you can kind of target the people you want to speak to, or even when you're at the event, a lot of times they'll do intros and stuff. So I tried to kind of hone in on people who I, kind of aligned with the type of PM work that I was hoping to get. Which leads me to my next point, which was, I also tried to take a strategic approach to targeting companies that I felt like would be most likely to consider me as a PM applicant. So, as a mechanical engineer, I was looking for companies that had physical products. And then, I kind of expanded that scope to, software products that I had used, I had been a user of. And tried to keep an open mind in terms of kind of different types of roles that I'd be interested in. What ended up being the key for me was the networking piece. So 1 year into my, exploration and, applying to God knows how many PM roles, I went to a networking event at Wayfair. And I had a great conversation with one of the recruiters. And she was like, send me your resume, and which I did. And she ended up getting back to me saying at the time they were not hiring for PM roles, only analysts. And she's like, but I'll keep you in mind for, future roles. I said, great. Kind of forgot about it. Literally a year later, I got reached out by
Wow.
this recruiter, and she said, hey, there is a PM role opening on the pricing operations team at Wayfair. Are you interested? And I was like, pricing operations, like didn't really know what that was, but I was like, yes, like I would love to interview for this role. Ended up getting the offer. And I remember, sitting down and thinking about my options. And I was like, I could take this job, which this offer I have in my hand for a PM role that is not really like I kind of had imagined. It was very different, like outside the scope of kind of the typical kind of role I was looking for. Or I could take it and get it on my resume and get the experience to then, maybe pivot to something else if it was, if that ended up not being the role I wanted to stay in. Um, and I ended up taking the job, and I was like, I don't know how much longer it's going to take, for me to actually get, a role in a more kind of, in my mind, like relevant kind of area. So there it was. 2 years later, I became a product manager. And I'll stop because I know you came off mute, so I don't know if there's any questions, Nassar.
There are a couple of questions. That's an
Okay.
amazing story, first of all. So I have one question of my own, but I'll wait to ask that in a little bit. We have two on this one and one on the slide before. So
Sure.
on this one, you talk about how you broke into product. The question was, why did you break into product and not, or in PM specifically, but not another product role? Like, why do you pick PM versus you could have, gone and done something else that is still in the product domain? Why
Yeah,
PM?
it's a great point, and a good question. I think that probably had my my looking for a PM role extended, I maybe would have like expanded the different types of roles that I was looking into, like maybe product owner, maybe product marketing manager. I don't know. But I think given my technical background, I thought I would probably be most likely to be able to like leverage that technical background in a PM role. So that was my target role. But it is a good point, and it is something that, as other people are trying to break in, I think that is a good strategy. If you're not able to do like exactly what you're trying to do, kind of maybe think more broadly about, especially if you're a little like more junior in your career, like maybe a product analyst role or, a product owner role or something else where you can kind of get a lot of relevant experience and then pivot, if you decide you want to.
Okay, that's true. That's fair. Like I've seen that. In your topic on networking and type of companies you try to go after when you're applying, do you think it's true that some companies give chances to non-PMs for PM roles, and that are better suited to get into, or do you think it's not really a thing and it just depends on being in the right place at the right time?
Uh, well, I probably both. I think that definitely right place, right time can make a big difference for a lot of things. And I will say, I got interviews. It's not like it was like crickets for 2 years. Like I was making some traction. Um, but I think it is just one of those roles where it's very tough because in almost every job description, even you see some like associate PM roles, like they're looking for 1 to 2 years of experience in product management. So it can be tough when you don't have that on your resume. And the other wild thing about my experience was once I got that role at Wayfair and put it on my LinkedIn, within 1 week, I was getting recruiters reaching out to me. I'm like, come on, people, I've been doing it for 1 week. But it's
Uh,
wild, like the doors that open once you are able to break in and kind of, put that on your resume.
That is funny. It's awesome. Yep, have been there. Never, ever, ever give up. Basically, that's the takeaway from this slide. Um, Something on your roadmap, and this is the question I get asked the most often, which is, do you need to go to school to get into product management? Now I know, we both went to TGI, and we both had our own reasons to go get in there. But now, being a senior leader, do you think that breaking into product was a function of you having gone to TGI?
Yes, and for more reasons than one. I think, had I not done that for our program, I probably wouldn't have thought about pivoting outside of engineering. I think I would have been on that track, for life. So like that exposure and that, kind of awareness that I had this interest outside of, just being a mechanical engineer, I think was big. But also for me, like all of that education and, everything that I gained from that has allowed me to be successful in my roles, like as a PM and as a leader. I think without that, maybe you learn stuff along the way, but I think for me that was extremely pivotal in my ability to, understand that I had interest, break in, and then, be successful in a variety of roles.
That's an interesting perspective. You know, I joined TGI for different reasons. I joined TGI because I thought I wanted to change, what domain I was in. And I think having that on my resume and having gone through it definitely accelerated my, transition into product. Um, I feel eventually I would have anyway been able to do that, but I do think it acted in having me do it, 5 years sooner than I would have naturally or organically got into that. And the learnings were awesome at TGI, so that was great. That's all we have for now on questions, but let's keep going with the rest of your talk.
Right. Yes. All right. So I'm first time PM. So my role at Wayfair, I was the PM of a completely back-end internal pricing product that was responsible for generating cost estimates for, at the time, over 30 million products sold by Wayfair in their sites. So it was a very steep learning curve for me. I did not have background in software. I had never seen SQL before. I was coming in like kind of blind. And so it was, again, a steep learning curve, like learning SQL, becoming the subject matter expert of this system, while at the same time learning how to work in an agile environment, learning how to do other PM skills like effectively scope and MVP, and everything that goes along with that. So, and I remember thinking when I first started, like, I'm not qualified for this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And like textbook imposter syndrome. And how I was able to overcome that was I just dove in. I was so determined. I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I spent countless hours, doing trainings. I remember printing out like it was probably like 35 pages of like SQL code that I would just like annotate, and I would just like get so deep into the details to really become the subject matter expert of the product that I was managing. And then the other thing I really tried to do was remind myself that, I had other strengths. Like I had been working for 7 years, before getting this job, and I had very transferable skills that I was able to apply starting on day one. So I had a lot of stakeholder management skills. I was, good at communicating. I was, good at kind of like making data-driven decisions and writing requirements. And so keeping that in the back of my mind where I'm like, okay, I'm not actually starting from nothing. Like I do have some things that I can, leverage as I ramp up in this role. And so all that, along with the determination, allowed me to really succeed in the role, become the subject matter expert, build a roadmap, work on, complex projects, and really, do a good job kind of delivering value. And something else that I learned along the way, especially in the first PM role, was, the advantages to being data-driven in decision making. So, you think about life as a product manager, and it's tough. You have a lot of requests coming in, especially, you're an internal PM, so like everyone knows where you sit. And so they're always coming to you with, requests. Then there's, the aspect of, tight deadlines. And of course, there's always constraints on resources. Like there are never enough engineers to work on everything that you want to do. And so taking a data-driven approach to not only prioritization, but also the measurement of success has been like a skill that I developed at Wayfair and have taken, up till today. And so what I have liked to do is really take a value divided by effort approach to prioritization. So really thinking about, what metric are you hoping to move by delivering this feature, and quantifying, estimating, the impact of that. Like what is the value? And sometimes that can be tough when it's maybe not as straightforward, but trying to think about ways to quantify that can really make a big difference. And then the other piece of that equation is what's the level of effort. So that's when, your engineering counterpart can come in and kind of give you that estimate. And then once you have a sense for, okay, here are all the potential projects that you want to work on, your value, your effort, you can identify those quick wins. What are your, high value, low effort projects that you can work on first? What are your low value, high effort projects? Those are at the bottom of the list and you almost never do them. And then there's a bunch in between that you kind of have to sort out, but it can help you, really build a roadmap regardless of what time frame you're looking at. It could be on a sprint by sprint basis, a quarterly roadmap, yearly roadmap. Gives you a really good framework for evaluating, trade-offs and making decisions regarding what you should work on and when. And then with that, I also have found that it's easier to have these conversations with stakeholders and get buy-in and alignment in terms of, why you've decided to work on what when, and give an opening to stakeholders if they have additional information regarding impact that may be helpful to, include in your equation. So that's a prioritization piece, but then after delivery, ensuring that you go back and measure how effective, the release was, and how does that compare to how you estimated it? Because sometimes that can result in lessons learned that you can apply moving forward. So I think the data-driven piece is a really one of many keys to succeed in the PM role.
That's pretty cool, Alex. Thank you for sharing. You basically spoke about in this slide, in the last one, about acquiring a whole bunch of new skills very rapidly in order to succeed in a space that was, unknown to you before you started. How did you go about doing that? Did you have help? Did you leverage networks, people? Was it just all yourself in spending hours? How did you go about doing that in short manner and becoming an expert, in SQL or data science or what else you were talking about?
Yeah, for me, it was like a lot of on the job. And in the department I was working on, there were other people who also came in with like a limited background. So they had very good training. So I was able to kind of ramp up in, getting started with SQL and kind of the product in that way. And then from the product side of things, I think it was a lot of observation on my part. Like, how are other PMs like being successful in their work streams and trying to emulate that in mine? I thought that was a really good approach to trying to figure out like how to go about things. You can do product in so many different ways, but that was helpful too. So it was a little bit of a few different things, I think.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Great. So after it was over a year and a half at Wayfair, I had completed a really, really big project. And I started to think, what's next? And what I was interested in at the time was working on a product that was customer facing. And I personally love travel. So I ended up getting my next product role at TripAdvisor. And there I was working on the hotel's B2B team and was working on the sponsored placements ad product, which at the time was generating $40 million a year. So that was pretty exciting. And so this product, so if you go to, tripadvisor.com and you search for hotels in London, it's, the first result that pops up is typically sponsored. And so I worked on a bunch of different areas, but one of them was the kind of management portal for hotel owners looking to, basically buy these ads, and the reporting and pacing and budget and payments and all the things that kind of went into that area. But given that this was a customer facing role, which I was very excited to work on, I had a new set of challenges and an expanded set of stakeholders, including sales and marketing and user research and design, people that I hadn't, worked with at Wayfair, given that it was a completely back-end internal system. So that was exciting. And then there was this other piece of, moving from a PM to an SPM role and the expectation that comes with that in terms of being able to work autonomously on ambiguous projects. And at TripAdvisor, one of their main pillars was speed wins. So you had to do that quickly. That was always something that was kind of hit home in terms of, all right, we got to we got to work fast. We got to, if we're going to fail, we're going to fail fast. We're going to learn and we're going to pivot and we're going to move forward. But the ambiguity piece for me was a little tough because I love data and I love having all the information before making a decision. And self-admittedly, I would say too, like I can be risk averse at times. And I think that comes with, my background in mechanical engineering, where you can't really take a lot of risks because there are pretty bad impacts that could happen if you do so. But this is ads. So like that was another kind of shift. It's like no one is going to die if, you make the wrong choice for something. So keeping perspective, I think was good. But also I came up with a framework that allowed me to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with the ambiguity. And so what this looked like was first just like really understanding the problem. Like what are we facing and how, what do we need to do? From there, like try to get as much data as possible. Sometimes there are holes, or sometimes you can fill those holes, by A/B testing or doing user testing or, getting different feedback. But depending on your time frame and what's available to you, sometimes there are holes. And so that's when it's important to document assumptions. So how can you think about things that you don't actually have all the data, but you need to make some assumptions. And then from there, thinking about different solution options to that problem, and then documenting like the pros, the cons, the risks, and the mitigations. For me, this is always really helpful to get it on paper to understand the trade-offs of the different solution options. And from there, you can, personally come up with a recommendation that you can then use to, you have this document, you can get buy-in and alignment with other stakeholders and agreement on the plan moving forward. And that allows you to execute quickly, and then you can monitor and pivot if necessary. And you kind of go in with eyes wide open in terms of what those, pros, cons, risks, and how you're going to mitigate any of them. So I found that to be really helpful, again, in that role and moving forward.
I love this slide, Alex. Thank you for sharing this. I mean, you in one slide, you have so many points covered. You talk about ambiguity, you talk about frameworks, you talk about, a different set of challenges that you tackle. And, the whole story on being an engineer. I mean, this talk was on breaking into product. And I see this with a lot of engineers. The number one thing is, hey, can I get exact? Can I get precise? Can I get the whole data and the whole picture? And learning to let go of that instinct that we are all, have learned over so many years, 7 years for you, many years for me as well, is kind of key to growing as a PM. The more that we can let go, especially in small companies or startups where we have very, resource constrained, budgets and teams, we don't have the luxury of doing deep data analysis and on the whole projection. So you have to do a little bit of it, kind of build out the rest yourselves, and kind of take those quick decisions. So I love this little framework you've painted for us there. So no question, just a comment. I love this.
Thank you. Awesome. So I love my time at TripAdvisor. Honestly, at this point, I did not want to leave. I was thinking, oh, this is a great place for me to learn and grow my product career. Like I was so excited. And then COVID hit in 2020 and just, completely decimated the travel industry. So unfortunately, I, along with like 75% of my department, was laid off in 2020. So that forced me into looking for another product role. And a little bit of the silver lining was that I ended up getting a leadership role in product as my next role. So I joined HomeSite as like a group leader where I was managing a team, and through networking was able to get my current role at Raptive because one of my managers from TripAdvisor ended up working at Raptive and told me about an open role, and been there for 3 years now. Going into a leadership role, it was a shift. I was no longer the sole individual contributor for a certain product. I was more in this like player coach relationship that you hear about sometimes. So you're managing a team, but you're also doing some individual contributor work. And I found that one of the challenges was like kind of navigating that and finding the right balance between having PMs on my team work autonomously and have ownership, while also kind of like diving in certain areas and contributing. But that was a good experience. And then, and actually both roles at HomeSite and at Raptive, having the opportunity to build a team. So hire and develop PMs. And then, really try to create good cultures. I think that is a really big key in terms of setting up PMs for success. Being able to work in an organization where there's trust, amongst the PMs and the engineers and the stakeholders, is really big, and it really allows for shared goals to be had, and collaboration, and also processes to work effectively in this kind of environment where things are going well. And then I think to maintain that good culture, it's really important to really provide direct feedback, and be transparent with your team in terms of like areas of opportunity, but also like, where the team is doing really well, and celebrating those successes, to, create that kind of positive environment. But then, on the flip side, kind of like identifying and escalating when there are issues, so that you can kind of address them, and make sure again that, it's an environment where people are kind of, really set up for success. And to do that, it requires you to be able to manage up, and also across. So like building that trust relationship across leaders, across the engineer, or across the organization, overall, is really helpful in order to kind of like facilitate that environment. And then the last piece really comes down to specifically being a product leader. So coming up with a compelling vision, along with goals that are achievable for your team to actually work on and deliver, is really, really, really big. And for me, that's one of the most exciting parts about being a product leader, like having that higher level view into kind of what opportunities lie, and like where these work streams could go. And having, helping your team kind of like deliver on that is really great. So excited to be in the leadership role within product. So parting thoughts, as I think about my journey from mechanical engineering in my first product role, then moving up to senior and to product leader, I keep coming back to what we kind of talked about at the beginning, which is, the skills that got me to where I am today are not the same ones I need to where I want to go tomorrow. In addition to this concept of, growth requires tackling uncomfortable challenges. So whether it be networking as an introvert, dealing with ambiguity, or any of the other things, it can be uncomfortable at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the more that you can kind of grow your skills and experience. So I'm really excited for my future journey, as I look to where I'm going next, and having the opportunity to continue to build my skills and experience, and become a even better product leader moving forward.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing these. I think I love this, the way you have this structured, where every single stage of the PM journey, you have different skills that you acquire that helped you to move on to the next one, and then you let go of some things and then keep on growing. I think this is awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Alex. We have a few questions. Some of these are on the slide, some of them are a little different. The first one is, yeah, I'll rephrase it a little bit. It's talking about the macroeconomic environment today, where it's a really tough environment for job seekers of all tech roles, including PM. Any thoughts or tips on stuff that you learned that might help job seekers in today's environment, in today's market?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I feel like every time, you go on LinkedIn, you see people looking for jobs, or it's like another company has done a layoff, and, it's definitely kind of hard to see sometimes. But I think I think all of the kind of lessons learned that I shared are still very applicable in any kind of environment. So like, leaning on your network, thinking about how you can talk to, people within your network or expand your network by going to different events and kind of hearing from people and understanding like what opportunities there are available, can be really helpful. Keeping an open mind about different roles, maybe that target role that you're really gunning for doesn't work out. And so, widening kind of your scope of opportunity could be another pathway to getting your next role. So those are some of the things that come to mind that I think, are relevant regardless of the environment, but, also this one.
Cool. This next one is kind of in a similar vein. It's talking about AI, and it's about how can PMs um, learn more or leverage AI to further their PM careers.
Yeah, it's so relevant to the environment today. I think that there's so many applications for AI. One that comes to mind immediately is just like being more efficient as a PM. So, there's always a million things to do as a PM every day. And one way that I personally have leveraged AI is by getting faster insights to qualitative data. So we do a lot of surveys and we have a lot of kind of different ways that we can get, feedback and insight from our customers. And, before LLMs and stuff, it was just like a very manual process of reading through like every single free text response and coming up with categories and trying to, bucket different responses and to gain insights into, these kind of like wide variety of responses. But with AI now, it's like you just plug it all in and you can ask it to summarize for you or, generate some insights. And it's not perfect, but I think the speed to insight is a lot faster than without it. So that's been a really helpful application of AI for my everyday work. And then, there's also this whole other world where, you can potentially build AI into your products, which is exciting. But also I think right now still comes with a lot of limitations and caveats in terms of what it can do and, the hallucinations and things like that. So being careful with, how you use it and the fidelity that you put into that technology, I think is still an important consideration, like as you're using it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'll couldn't agree more with you. I'll share my own experience with this. I worked in ML for a couple of years in my last role, and in general, I wouldn't say an AI skeptic, but I know that there are efficacy concerns, hallucinations, other issues with AI. So we're still working our way through these. The one place where I found success in using is around summaries, but in a different way. Usually as PMs, we have a lot of meetings, a lot of stuff to do, less time. So I try to cram my notes, my PODs, my work during other meetings, which means that I can't take notes and kind of pay full attention to all those meetings. The big thing is action items. I want to make sure that every time I have a meeting, there's a whole set of action items that are assigned to people. Well, Zoom's AI companion has been pretty cool for me, where it automatically generates action items that people take. I can just take that, copy paste it, and just send this to people and say, hey, here's action items from the meeting. So I think that kind of saves me easily like 10 minutes per meeting. Multiply that with my whole week, and that's a couple of hours of time that I've saved, which I'm doing other work. So that's one way in which you can get more efficient, maybe in a slightly indirect manner using AI.
Yeah, that's a great example.
The next question is a little bit from left field. Um, any tips on doing this? I think this refers to PM career advancement as a working parent.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah. So I do have two kids, ages almost 4 and almost 2.5. So they're still
Wow.
very young. And I think, all the working parents, like you're doing amazing. Like it's not easy, I think, probably regardless of kind of what role or industry that you're in. But what I have found to be really helpful is, I've been fortunate enough to work at companies where there's been a lot of flexibility,
Mm.
and the ability and to kind of like have boundaries. So like I have to go pick up my kids at 5 and people get that. But there's also trust in terms of being able to, get the work done. So sometimes that means like after I put the kids to bed, I have to log on and, finish something up. So it's not always easy, but I really do enjoy being a working parent. I find that it's, very rewarding, and it's kind of nice to have, your own kind of time creating successes apart from the joys of also being a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a tough one. Personally, I have two kids as well, two young kids. I have the privilege of working for a company, Huntress, which is fully remote, fully flexible. So we're able to, do things on our own time, from our workplaces. By the way, we're also hiring for PMs. If anyone's interested, please hit me up on LinkedIn. But in general, I think something that has worked for me is when I was more junior in my PM career. I also think that doing more would get me ahead. I would like, spend more time, do just more work and more work output. And over time, I realized, now looking back, that doing more is not what gets you, up the ladder. Doing the right sets of things and doing less, but going deep and making an impact is what actually lets you do it. If you try to do too much, which a lot of PMs take on lots of responsibilities, lots of features, lots of products, they actually do not succeed. And sometimes letting go of things and doing less, but doing it really, really well and making sure that everyone knows that, I think lets you get ahead. So, any for working parents, try to do less and you'll actually see that you can rise up faster.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Um, and I guess this is the last one. We are almost out of time here. You spoke about rising up the ladder. I'm curious to know what's next for you. But the meta question is, what's driving you? What is it that you want to get as you rise up the PM ladder? What is, as Alex, your ultimate goal?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think in general, what I enjoy doing as, being a PM leader right now is having the opportunity to mentor PMs and watch them kind of grow their own careers. That's a very rewarding piece of the role. So definitely want to continue with that. And then the other exciting piece is really having the ability to make more of a strategic impact at a higher level. And that comes with, of course, more responsibility, but it's, I think, a very exciting piece of the role where, again, you can have that wider impact. You are involved in conversations, at an earlier level. You are able to sometimes like influence different decisions and outcomes. And, for that reason, I want to continue to grow my, product leadership experience, and hopefully, continue to kind of, move up on the ladder within product.
That is awesome, Alex. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your PM career journey, all your learnings. I think they were very valuable. For everyone who joined us live, thank you so much. I hope you got some value out of this. I think I got a lot of stuff from this. A lot of it jived with me, but a lot of it was new, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff. So, Alex, thank you so much for everyone who's watching this. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you at the next one, at the next BTC webinar, which will be a month from now. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank
Cheers.
you.